Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas and this is how to create a Resident Evil clone in Unity, and welcome to episode 20. In this tutorial we're going to work on some global control as well as adding the gun to our player and making sure it moves with him correctly. Don't forget, click the subscribe button and click on the bell icon as well to stay up to date with every tutorial still to come in this series and everything else on game development on my channel. With that in mind, let's get to work. So, I mentioned there in the introduction that we're going to work on global control. Why is global control exactly? Well, in a game, there are many scripts, and these need to interact with each other on occasion to basically create different things. And we saw in the last tutorial an example of why global control is useful. For example, we paused the game, but we were still able to open up the inventory. So what happens if we try the opposite of that? What if we were, let's say, inside our inventory and we try pausing the game? We can still do that. And we can also basically close the inventory and do it that way. So that kind of stuff just feels a little bit off. And having some global controls in place so scripts can interact with each other is a way of preventing all that from happening, and it just makes it seem a little bit more authentic and seamless in terms of its functionality. So let's create a script which will allow us to control what happens and when. So let's go to our script folder down here, and let's create a new folder, and we'll call this one Globals. And in here we'll call a new script global control, and let's open that up in Visual Studio. So there is one thing I want to start off with when doing this. I think we did a couple of tutorials ago when we dealt with the cursor being turned off, and currently when we start the game the cursor is on. So let's start by having that turned off. So if we go to inventory control, and it's just this line of code here. So if we copy that cursor.visible equal false and place it inside the start method and save, first and foremost, that's one of the global controls out of the way. That will just make the cursor disappear as soon as we start the game, which is what we want. So I'm going to get rid of the annotations. So how is this going to work exactly? Well, we need this script to be able to tell when something is functioning and when something isn't. So for example, we need this script to know if we are inside the inventory or if we are inside the pause menu, and then stop any further functionality. Now this is an example of a script that will start small but will grow as we get further and further into development. So firstly, let's start by disabling the pause screen when we are in the inventory. So to do that, we need to say public, and then we need to say the word static. And static basically means that we can interact with this script from another script. So basically, our inventory control can talk to this script directly. If you don't have the word static, it won't be able to interact with any variables that we declare here. So we're going to say public static inventory open. And next, in fact, that should be a boolean, my apologies. So public static bool inventory open, public static bool pause open, semicolon. So these two variables are the ones we're going to deal with more than anything. And it doesn't matter about any other code just for now. By default though, we will say both of those are false. And we need to go into our inventory control now. So at this point, we need to basically disable the fact that we have the inventory control open and stop the pause game from happening. So it might actually be easier to try and start with the pause actually, just so we can get an understanding of how all this is working. So we're saying if input.getButtonDown is pause and global control dot pause open equals false. Now you can see there we've been able to interact with that other script now. That's basically saying that this is the script and this is the variable inside that script that we want to deal with. Remember, because it is static. So let's save both of those scripts. And let's head back into Unity. We need to attach that global control script onto our control object over here. So drag and drop onto there. And you'll see it's just a little script there. There's no variables that we need to deal with here, but it is worth noting anything that is static will not appear in the inspector panel. So let's press play. And we should still be able to pause and unpause the game. Cool. So we can now deal with this a couple of different ways, and it's up to you how you want to deal with all of this. But what we're saying is that this is a way of showing just how we interact. We're not going to stick with this line of code. This is just a way of me showing that we can interact with another script via pretty much any method. So what we do need to say is we need to get rid of that for starters. That, like I say, just a quick indication of how you can interact. We need to say here that global control dot pause open equals true, and down here we also need to put global control dot pause open equals false and save. So on our global control now, what we can do is we can have an if statement. So if, and in brackets, pause open equals true, then do the following. We need to say inventory open also equals true. Now, in typing this now, I kind of feel maybe we need to work a little with our naming convention here, because this now looks like it's saying that the inventory is open when in actual fact it isn't. It's just because the naming convention here. So what we could say is, instead of having inventory open, let's have this as disable inv, and let's have disable pause. And obviously that means we're going to have to change things here. So this is going to be disable pause, and this is going to be disable, oops, that's gone a bit funny there, my fault. And that's going to be disable inv equals true, which means we're also going to have to change it here. So global control dot disable pause, disable pause, and here global control dot disable pause and resave. So basically we're disabling the pause in here, which means nothing else can function. So that means that if we save this script and head to inventory control, we now need to basically put another if statement here to nest everything together and say if global control dot disable inv, because this is the inventory script, remember. So at this point, if we're paused, then disable inv will be equal to true, which means that this needs to be equal to false. Close bracket, open curly bracket, and then delete this curly bracket and place it below there, and it will automatically indent things and save the script. So just to reiterate, what is happening here with this global control is that if disable inventory is true, none of this will function, so we can't press that inventory key. And that can only happen if we press the pause button first, because if we press the pause button, it sets disable pause as true, which says right here that we cannot open the inventory as well, because disable inventory will also be true. So if we head back into Unity now, and if we press play, and we should still be able to go into our inventory, out, pause, unpause. However, if we press pause and now try opening the inventory, we can't. Not until we unpause. So at this point, we cannot open the inventory once again. Reason being is because we haven't done the inverse of this. That just means we need an else statement. So else, open curly bracket, and here we just need to put disable inv equals false. Now this is a very, that should be a single equals, there we go, and save. So this is a very primitive way of doing it, and as it stands right now, it's not exactly fit for purpose, but it's something that we build upon. It, for now at least, stops us opening the inventory when we're in the pause menu. So just to kind of illustrate this. So we can still get in and out. Pause. Can't do it. Unpause. And we can do it once again. So it does also mean that if we go into the inventory and press pause, we can't come out the inventory, but if we unpause, and then we can. So it's up to you if you want to do it this way. You can take this a little bit further, and we probably will to some extent. But like I say, this global control script is just going to grow and grow and grow. And we'll probably also have some other fail safes in here to stop other things happening. So for example, if we want to have the inverse of this, you know, we've got the inventory open and we don't want to pause, then we just need to work around a little bit more. But for now, this should function as we would hope. So next thing I want to do is I want to add the weapon to our soldier here. And I want to make sure that it sticks in his hand whenever he moves around. So in order to do that, let's locate our weapon that we have, which is right here, the gun. And we're going to attach it to our player, but in a very specific place. So firstly, let's go to our player and let's go down the hierarchy. So we need to go down the rig and we need to go to rig spine and then 2 and then 3. And then you'll see as we go further down, there are many more things to work with here. But what we need more than anything is if we go down a little further, you will eventually find an object that is called rig pistol. And if we go down the left arm, you'll also find a couple of different ones, but we're going with the right for now. Again, it's up to you if you want to be a bit different there. So let's go down the right arm, 1, 2, and the third one, and then down there you'll see rig pistol. We need to make sure that we place our pistol inside this object. The reason being is this is pre-made so as it will carry any weapon that we place into there. So if we zoom in to his hand and place the weapon inside there, you'll see it's a little bit large, but let's reduce the size to 0.3, 0.3, and 0.3. Is that still too big? I think that is way too big. Let's try the other one. Let's try this one into there. That's better. So 0.3, 0.3, and 0.3. And now really what it is just a case of maneuvering that weapon into the correct position so as he is holding it in his T-pose. So let's turn the rotation back to 0. And it looks like it's just a case of adjusting that weapon's position in his hand. And obviously you should take a lot more time than what I do. The weapon looks to be a little bit too big. But that might do, to be honest. That might just do. So obviously you take a little bit more time doing this. And what should happen, hopefully, if you've got it in the right position, is when you press play, he should walk around with that weapon in his hand. And he does. You can see it there in his hand. Perfect. Now, I'm not sure if it's exactly where it needs to be, but you just take a little bit more time with that and make sure you get the weapon in the right place. Why is this important? Well, it's important because next tutorial what we're going to do is we are going to have the ability to make him aim with this weapon. So we're going to hold down the right mouse button and make him aim. And that's all to come next tutorial. Until then, guys, thank you very much for watching.